All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolutely incredible true story of rebellion, sheer grit, and literally hitting the bullseye. It's a narrative that completely shatters expectations about aging and traditional societal roles. We are looking at the phenomenal journey of these shooter Dadis. Get ready to be inspired because this story proves, without a doubt, that it is truly never too late to pick up a new skill, even if that skill is firing a professional rifle.
Okay, let's jump right in. I want you to picture a national champion sharpshooter. Just imagine them for a second. What do they look like? You're probably picturing someone young, intensely athletic, maybe with a military background, all decked out in specialized tactical gear, right? Society kind of gives us this very specific cookie-cutter template for what an elite athlete is supposed to be. But the story we're looking at today, it completely upends that stereotype in the absolute best way possible.
So, meet our real protagonists, Chandro and Prakashi Tomar. These are 60-year-old grandmothers, or Dadis as they're called in Hindi, hailing from a deeply conservative rural village in India. And trust me, they weren't wearing tactical gear. They stepped right up to the firing line in their traditional, long flowing skirts called ghagras, often with their faces veiled. It's just a stunning visual and cultural contrast, right? But to really truly appreciate what they pulled off, we gotta understand the world they came from.
Section 1. The Patriarchal Village. So our story kicks off in Jauhari village, and this was an environment governed by incredibly rigid, deeply conservative patriarchal norms. On one hand, you had the men. They spent their days playing cards, smoking hookahs, and just having total control over family finances and decisions. On the other hand, the reality for the women was, well, it was harsh. We're talking an endless, grueling cycle of domestic chores, working the farming fields, raising kids, and facing strict confinement. Basically, they were forbidden from leaving the house without permission, let alone pursuing a hobby. Their whole existence was defined by unpaid, unacknowledged labor.
Section 2. Discovering the Bullseye. Now you might be wondering, how on earth do two women from such a restrictive environment end up holding professional rifles? Well, it actually didn't start with their own ambition. They were just desperate to break this cycle for the next generation. A local doctor named Yashpal had set up a shooting range in the village, and he promised that sports excellence could lead to secure government jobs. The Dadis simply wanted to empower their granddaughters and daughters to escape the confinement they had lived through. So they started escorting the young girls to the range just to protect them and encourage them. They absolutely weren't there for themselves. But then, pure magic happened. One day, while trying to show a really nervous granddaughter how to hold the gun, one of the Dadis casually picks up this heavy rifle, takes aim, and pulls the trigger. And when you know it, she hits the target perfectly on her very first try. The Hindi term for this is Saand ki Aankh, which literally translates to bullseye. Dr. Yashpal was absolutely floored by this raw talent. He instantly realized, hey, these grandmothers actually have the potential to be champions themselves.
Of course, this wasn't some seamless, easy transition. When word got out that the women were hanging around the shooting range, the patriarchal pushback was immediate, and it was fierce. The village men actively mocked them. They'd say things like, "This game is not for women. The gun is a man's ornament." To them, a woman holding a gun was a direct insult to their masculinity and a flat-out rebellion against the village order. So, the very real threat of severe punishment was constantly hanging in the air.
Section 3. Champions in Secret.
Because of those threats, the Dadis were basically forced underground. They had to invent this incredible, covert routine. To even get out of the house, they'd tell their husbands they were going off to a religious gathering, a satsang. And under this holy cover story, Dr. Yashpal would secretly drive them to regional and national shooting championships. They would step onto the range, systematically outshoot all their competitors, win the gold medal, and then literally race back home just in time to cook dinner, grind the wheat, and finish their endless chores, acting like absolutely nothing had happened. It's wild.
And okay, here is the absolutely beautiful irony of the whole thing. People would constantly ask Dr. Yashpal, how do these 60-year-old women have such incredibly steady hands? And the truth is amazing. Decades of grinding grain by hand, doing heavy farm labor, hauling huge pots of water, it had unknowingly given them the exact perfect balance, muscle memory, and core strength you need for professional shooting. The very manual labor that was meant to confine them had literally forged them into elite athletes.
Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer caliber of opponents these grandmothers were defeating. We are definitely not talking about amateur hour. They were stepping up to the line in their ghagras and taking down highly trained professionals. I mean, they defeated a Deputy Inspector General of Police in Chandigarh. They beat the Maharani of all war in Delhi. They even outshot an army brigadier at the national level. These folks had specialized gear, years of formal training, and they just could not beat the shooter Dadis. No way! Over the course of their secret careers, the number of medals they racked up is staggering. 96. That is 96 times they had to secretly smuggle a gold or silver medal back into their homes and hide it from their husbands. But, a secret this massive, in a village that small, it's really only a matter of time before the bubble bursts.
Section 4. The truth comes out.
And sure enough, the inevitable happened. The cover story blew up. The men of the household finally stumbled upon the hidden stash of medals and all these local newspaper clippings celebrating their wives and mothers. The husbands were furious. They suddenly realized that all those devout religious gatherings over the years were actually national shooting championships. Their wives were out there humiliating elite male officers.
This all boiled over into a massive, tense showdown at the panchayat, the village council. The men threatened violence and demanded an immediate end to this shameful behavior. But the Dadis, they fiercely stood their ground. They pointed to their entire lifetimes of unpaid, back-breaking labor, and basically demanded to know what exactly the men had achieved with their days besides playing cards. Oh, the egos were bruised. The men mockingly challenged the women's skills right back. So ultimately, the entire future of their shooting, and really the freedom of the younger girls, hung completely on whether their granddaughters could actually secure those promised government jobs and international medals.
Section 5. A lasting legacy. They didn't just win a temporary argument that day. They showcased this profound bond of sisterhood. Let me tell you this quick story. During a really critical competition, Chandra found out her granddaughter hadn't made the national team. She was devastated. Her eyes welled up with tears, her vision blurred, and she completely missed her shot, scoring a 0. Well, Prakashi saw her sister-in-law and closest friend hurting, so what does she do? She intentionally shoots her own bullet way off target, scoring a 0 on purpose. She literally chose to be disqualified and lose alongside Chandra, rather than stand on that winner's podium without her. That is true solidarity.
And that immense solidarity paid off in the grandest way possible, sparking this huge generational shift. It all started with the Dadis taking a massive, unheard-of risk at 60 years old. That bravery acted like a shield, giving their granddaughters the space to train during their teenage years. And the ultimate payoff? Seema Tomar, one of the daughters, traveled to England and won a silver medal at the World Cup. She became the very first Indian woman to win an international shooting medal. The Dadis actually did it. They completely broke the cycle. Through it all, they lived by this incredibly powerful slogan, Tan Buddha ho, Man Buddha nahi hota. It means the body ages, but the mind does not. They proved that all those societal expectations around age and gender, it's just noise. Your spirit, your intense focus, and your ability to learn new things are totally boundless, as long as you refuse to let your mind grow old. Which leaves us with this final thought for today's explainer. We've seen how Chandro and Prakashi took whatever tiny openings they had and turned them into absolute gold, forever changing their village's history. So I gotta ask you, if two grandmothers in rural India can shatter generations of patriarchy and doubt with a single shot, what barriers are you letting society build in your mind? Keep that question with you. Thanks for joining me and keep aiming for your own bullseye.